Hello, how are you all? Everyone hear me okay? Well, I can hear me, so I assume you can. Hello, Jim, how are you?
Great. How's everybody?
All right, so I'm
a bit windy out there, isn't it?
So, I'm going to give a little impressive background to Jim Moginie. Founding member of Midnight Oil, guitarist, keyboard player, and songwriter. So, you would probably all know this, but Midnight Oil have released 12 studio albums, 40 singles, 2 EPs, 4 video albums, 4 live albums, and 6 compilation albums. The band has sold at least 12 million albums worldwide. That's probably more than that by now. And has scored 4 #1 albums, 1 quite recently, and another 5 top 10 albums. Jim's songwriting contribution to Midnight Oil includes Armistice Day, US Forces, Power and the Passion, Read About It, Best of Both Worlds, Kosciuszko, Hercules, Beds Are Burning, Dream World, The Dead Heart, Blue Sky Mine, Forgotten Years, King of the Mountain, Truganini, Redneck Wonderland, and my favourite, Cold Cold Change. Their most recent single, Gadigal Land, was the APRA peer-voted Song of the Year at the 2021 APRA Awards. Now, outside of that, Jim has been also very active. He's worked with, Dean mentioned a few of them, many notable musicians from Australia and New Zealand, including Silverchair, Sarah Blasco, End of Fashion, Neil Murray, Casey Chambers, Neil Finn, The Foves, Bill Chambers, Blind Valley, Leah Flanagan, The Black Sliders, The New Cries, Jordan Lesser, Catherine Bitt, Catherine Plummer, Love Parade, and many, many more. He's released 3 solo albums, 2 albums with, I will call it the surf band, if I may, The Break. And his latest project is called The Family Dog. And Jim is also one of the few musicians who has done a hammy on stage, which is normally what rugby league players do, but I think that's also equally impressive. So a bit of a round of applause for all of that, I think.
Guilty as charged.
So my first question would be, I got that off the internet, is any of it true?
None.
Okay, good.
Of course. No, a lot of it's true.
Look, I think the first question, and it's always it's a slightly cliche question, but how did you start as a musician, as a young lad?
Like most people, I think I started getting interested in the piano at first, and the organ, and I had an H.D. Palmer chord organ that my parents bought for me for $20. I played that for about 5 years, and then I got into guitar, and then because a friend of mine was playing guitar in the band and he was pretty lousy, went to rehearsal once and he was playing C to G7. I said, "Is that right? This doesn't sound right." He goes, "Yeah, well, you can play it better then, play it." And then I went home and I worked it out and played it better the next day. So I became the guitarist. There were 2 guitar band now, which I like 2 guitar bands, of course. And then from then, I think playing and then learning other people's songs, learning what made them work, was always a thing for me. I'm such a fan of music and I'm listening to music all the time. I'm always hearing things. How did they do that? What is that? What's the trick? How does that? Is that a chorus or a bridge? What's that? I'm very curious about what makes music tick. And I got that sort of bug in me when I was quite young. And then I got a piano when I was 17, like a real one, which my parents bought me for my 17th birthday. I had to wait that long to get one. And then I got on it, and as soon as I got on it, I was gone. It was like, wow, this is music. It's all about this orchestral sound, this celestial thing where you're kind of sitting with this instrument, and it's just this, it's all there in front of you. All the choices are there, and you just can, I think I was sort of transcending at that point, in a way. Transcendence is a big part of songwriting, I think, and it's not about sort of necessarily, writing the hit or whatever. It's more about getting in a kind of a state where you're kind of a bit hypnotised by the whole thing. So then I went through that, and then the band started. Went to university. I didn't know what to do. That's why I went to university, because I didn't know what I was doing. I started doing a science degree. Got interested in doing architectural acoustics, and we designed the High Court building windows in Canberra for the judges to sit in silence for their deliberations while looking at the lake. with this very, very high spec for the glass. So I was at the CSIRO for a little while, and then the band started, and we were playing at Caves Beach Hotel or something, and then we'd get home to Sydney at 4 a.m. and then have to be up and Brighton Butcher Tail at 8 o'clock in the morning in Ryde to do the science thing. So something had to go, you know, and it was the science and the architectural thing, and the music, and the band started, and that was it. I was kidnapped.
So, I mean, as a young guitar player, what's the point at which you went, you know, I don't want to play, I love playing other people's songs, but what made you go, I want to use this instrument to write, and the keyboards for that matter?
Yeah, that's interesting. We were writing our own songs, but they were more like songs where you go into a room and get a riff and you go, oh, that looks good. Why don't we I'll play that another time, and why don't we sing this over that? And that kind of songwriting was fine, and it's still very valid, and I still do it today, sort of guitar-based stuff. But then I was reading an article. This is typical sort of me to say something like this, but I'm a big fan of Don Walker, and Don was in Ram magazine talking about writing songs for Cold Chisel, and I realised that, you know, they tapped into an Australian thing, which was this writing about your homeland and what you know, and rather than some cod Americana where you're trying to sort of write something commercial, so people to appeal to some sort of market, you know, that just wasn't very interesting to me. I thought I'd seen bands doing that here, and I thought, no, that's not really what we are. And I've been listening to bands like Skyhooks, which were very Australian-oriented lyrics and really powerful, sort of, and funny as well. And Chisel, and Don was just simply saying that, and I said, you know, that's good. I think that's what I want to do. I think that's what I want to do. And Rob, who's in the band, the drummer, who I'd met when I was 13, and I'd been playing together, and I realised that he had a very great lyrical bent. His mother was a great poet, which I only found out when she died and went to her funeral, that oh, that's where Rob gets it from, you know, the mum.
Okay.
And he was always good at writing words, and I was sort of, oh, you know, well, this might go with that, you know. And then I'd make tapes at home. I always had a little studio at home, like most people do probably. And making little tapes, and just for my own pleasure, and then I'd give them to the band, and they go, oh, that's a good bit. And I'd go, oh, okay. And I'd give them like 2 cassettes worth of, you know, ramblings, and they'd kind of pick the best out of it and go, oh, that was a good bit. Well, that's a good song, or maybe it could be a song if you want it to be. And we go, okay. So we just jam it out. So it was a really collaborative atmosphere. So I didn't really have much pressure on me personally, like some people do. When they started, there was none of that. It felt like I was part of like a footy team or something.
So, given that, and you've written a lot of songs since, do you have a particular process to start with, or is it song by song, moment by moment, word by word?
Well, it's a strange thing. Usually piano, I'll just sit there, have this celestial sound going on, and you'll just be sitting there in this sort of state of kind of bewilderment in a way, not really knowing what's going to happen, don't really understand any of it. And suddenly you'll move a chord around, you go, oh, what's that? And you kind of, well, maybe that leads to something else. And I'm not a very good piano player, so I'll make mistakes and I'll capitalise on them, and I'll record them usually, the first bits of attempts at writing a song, just to get that little moment where maybe when you play the song the second time, you miss out on something you played the first time. It's just very important, but it might be like a little pause, or it might be a beat that you've dropped, or it might be a wrong bass note, but it could be the thing that makes it really special. I'm really into sort of observing that kind of stuff and the randomness of that in a sense, but there's a certain childlike activity. It's sort of the state of mind that I'm in. I'm not really in a judgmental state of mind. I'm really interested in just writing a lot of things, and then I'll come back later and with a microscope and maybe look at it more clinically. But at the time, I'm not interested in judging anything. I'll just sort of write a whole lot of things, and maybe some words might come as well if I'm lucky. And if they do come, that's great too. Often they're the best ones.
So you're kind of not editing as you go because it kind of interferes with the process?
No, it's very stream of consciousness. And because I think sometimes when you're improvising, you're sort of taking risks and you're not necessarily, being formal in any sense. You kind of being, it's a bit like kind of an art school approach in a sense. It's not such a, brill building thing in a way. It's more...
Would that be a bit of advice for young songwriters, is not to be too hard on yourself as you're creating?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you just got to be yourself. I mean, that's more important than, trying to write something for the charts or something. I mean, when you talk about charts and the masses and everything, I get very fearful. I just don't like any of that. I just don't think it helps,
But speaking of that, you have had many hits. So has it ever been deliberate? Is it something that just the band puts together a collection of songs and one seems to resonate more than the others, or is it a production approach that you take for the singles?
It's a hard question because all the records have been different and the way we've approached them has been different, and often the things you didn't think were going to be hits or hits, or the people. When I say hits, like things that connect or move people, in a sense. It's sometimes it's about tempo. Something that's, if it's something fast and people can relate to, like a good beat, and that's part of it too, I think. But often, if you slow a song down, you can hear the words better, and it can really move people. Like we did a version of Flame Trees, the Don Walker and Steve Presswich wrote, the Chisel song. And Sarah Blasco sang it, and we just slowed it down to absolute molasses tempo, so there was no beat at all. And then the song just came popping out. So it doesn't always have to be fast to be good, It's not. But of course, we're a rock band, so when you play live, they tend to be the ones that people like.
Yes.
The others, they'll head off to the hot dog stand or something. The ballads.
I mean, I just kind of rattled off a bunch of singles. Do you feel differently about those? With looking back a little bit compared to, because we were talking before about the range of stuff that you find on the rest of the album, all the albums you've made. Do you feel differently about them?
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, again, I look at it with a certain sense of wonder in terms of what people get out of them. I mean, often it's about something. Our songs are usually about something, and that's important too. That if it's a political, it's kind of political writing where you're kind of talking about an issue, I was talking to Richard before about that when we were talking about the First Nations thing, and it's like a kind of it can click with people. You do feel differently about them. When you play them, I never get sick of them. Because I have this sort of way of thinking about music. I've never played the song before, so I'll get up there and playing Birds of Burnie to 10,000 people or something, and I'm going to go, well, I have no idea how to play this. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't want to know. You can inhabit the song any way you want each time you play it. You're not really like a river. It's going to be different every time you play it anyway, no matter what you do. And often that's why I'm trying to improvise a lot, because I probably don't know. I'm almost like a man that's been thrown his guitar amp and he's, in a lake and he's trying to stop himself from drowning, struggling, to sort of get through it. But look, I do feel differently about them, and I don't know whether they're any better or worse than the others. I really don't know. That's just something that other people have. I mean, you can listen to the records and go, well, maybe it's a hit because it's got a chorus, it's catchy or something. Well, sure, that's important. What is a chorus, what is a verse? The questions for every songwriter, all you people here, it's what's a bridge, what's a middle eight, what does that mean? What is that? Is it important? And often you can just have one, like hip-hop, it's just a beat and someone over the top doing something that's compelling. There might be melodic elements in it, but it's not the main thing. So it's a bit of a mystery, but I I don't think I've really answered your question at all there, Steve.
No. That was spectacularly vague but insightful at the same time. I mean, is it anything you avoid, like writing 10-minute songs or leaving the chorus for 2 minutes into the song? Any sort of things you won't do? Things you avoid in songwriting?
Well, the Oils are about to put a single out in a couple of months, and the chorus didn't happen in the song for 2.5 minutes. And so there was a choice: are we going to make a single edit, or are we going to,
really?
all this stuff? Okay. And I'm kind of going, well, I can live with it if we cut out the bridge. It's fine. I wrote the song. It doesn't matter. You get to the chorus. It's in a way. The arranging, sort of, I guess this answers your question, the arranging in the band tends to be, it's not quite the Tom Petty thing, which is like, don't bore us, get to the chorus, but it's a little bit like, well, don't wait around too long. Because, the chorus is the thing of the song which sums it all up and what it's all about. That's the point of the song. So you want to get to the point in a conversation often, like I'm probably not now. But, is
that something that you listen for in music that you enjoy, necessarily?
Yeah, for that kind of music, yeah. If it's Tom Petty, which I love, it's always, or Jeff Lynne or something. It just always gets there when it needs to get there. It's like there's a time and a place for it. And I think as songwriters, you get to know that after a while. I think the Oils, whether we like to admit it or not, we craft it. It is crafted to a certain extent, and things that that are crafted move through the air differently than the things that aren't. I think in art it's the same.
So do you want to unpack that a little bit? The craft of what you do. What do you mean by that?
There's sort of two things that work. I think when people are doing something creative or writing songs, especially, there's two people. I think Brian Eno said this actually. In your brain, there's an adult and a child, and the child just likes to play, and the child's always playing and trying to kind of just play and just enjoy that. Whereas the adult's standing there going, oh, that's not very good. This bit goes on a bit long, and you can't have that, and they won't like that, and you better shut up and don't, and of course that can stop the child from playing at all. And of course that's how writer's block comes, because the adult has a very strong voice, and the adult's the one that's calling the shots. And but the thing is that the more the child plays, the more the adult just tends to disappear and eventually will just walk out of the room. So you've got to have the adult there a bit. I think it's this sort of, I don't know, it's an innate sense of what works. The craft is in songwriting is sort of, to me, just I suppose it's getting to the point, just saying what you want to say. Don't muck around, but as you go there can be a journey. It doesn't have to be meat and potatoes. For me, I think Rob, the other writer in the band that I've written with a lot, and Pete as well, but Pete's a bit more like me. He sort of meanders around a bit to get to the point, but Rob's very direct. And I think it's a good combination when there's a song called Dead Heart, which Rob brought in. It was quite slow. And I said, why don't we speed it up a bit? And why don't we put a little chant in there? Do, 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 do. And it was like, oh, yeah, that was good. And then that whole process took about half an hour. And it was all very instinctive. I just looked in my songbook, which I always have with me when I'm writing. So it's just a hard copy of just a book full of ideas that are often written, without any sense of judgment. That could work. It's sort of in the same key. Why don't we just put that in there as something to try? Often it doesn't work, but most of it, a lot of it's hit and miss. Like art, if there's a painter painting, I think there's very similar processes in art as there is in writing songs. There's colour, there's bits where you might want to leave something out in the corner down there. If you're talking about abstract art, something that sort of like a face that you can really relate to. That's probably like the chorus. And so the craft of it really is just the experience. You know, the more you write, the better it gets. You write a lot of stuff that's crap, and I do. I admit it. You know, it's glorious crap, but sometimes there's good things there, and if you keep going, you'll get enough. You go past a critical point where there's enough good stuff to.
You know, I've heard that a lot over the years, that songwriters go, I have to finish the bad ones to get to the good one. Does that resonate with you at all?
No, just get rid of the bad stuff. I mean, sometimes the bad stuff's good because it's just there and you can say, oh, well, actually, that's a good bass line. I might pull that melody out as a bass line. Those chords are all right, but what I put on them, it's no good. I remember the chords, and you'll just have them there just for later. Just cannibalise them later on, you know.
Excellent.
Exploit them. You know, it's often in recording, it's the straggler songs that take all the time. Maybe the ones that aren't as immediate. Sometimes are the slowest and hardest ones to get over the line. You wonder why you did it at all.
Well, which dovetails nicely into the next question, which Midnight Oil is a band of songwriters. And if you look at the kind of collection of songwriters, there's various combinations, some on their own, some, you know, might write with one person on one song and a different combination with another. So any hints on how that's managed in terms of which songs actually get onto the album, and then how you split those songs?
The group politic.
Yes.
Very difficult, yeah. We don't tend to, we're kind of a bit civilised in that sense. We don't sort of, you don't end up on the floor at 3 a.m. in Wagga Wagga going, you know, yes, because of you that, you know, you ruined my life, that you took that chorus out of that and you shortened the middle 8 and the way they played the tambourine on that was rubbish. And we don't have those sort of arguments as bands. We're very civilised. We don't tend to go there. We're more, if something's good, we'll go, that's good. Yeah, well, that's a good one. That's a good bit. Oh, let's use that. And very much not precious about it at all.
Okay.
Probably because of me, because I can't really remember anything much. It's slightly ADHD, I think. But I think it's just more from experience. You just realise that I just look at Rob and I go, God, you're such an amazing lyricist. And you come up with such great melodies. He always does. He always does. Like the last one, I'll talk about that later, but Gadigal Land, which was he brought in. And we just done this big reunion tour, and after that I was going, what? Are we really going to do some more stuff? And he goes, oh yeah. And people's like, oh yeah. And I go, really? Haven't we done it all already? This is what bands are all about. You know, there's all of these sort of dreamers and realists and, you know, opportunists and all within the band. And we had a songwriting session. I went along and Pete had a couple of things and which was really good. And Rob played Gadigal Land to me, and I was like, holy shit. You bastard, you know. Game on. Like, it was like, okay, now I've got to come up with something like that. And it's this sort of thing that bands operate on, this sort of levelling where you kind of, you make up for each other's inconsistencies, but you also, there's things that sort of, you know, I thought, well, I better get busy, you know, and I got my books out for about 2 months and I just delved into them and then we did come up with about 20 songs, and which we recorded in about 8 weeks. And
was that slightly, were you a bit trepidatious about, you know, getting back on the horse after so long?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Very fearful.
Since, I mean, you've had so many other things go on during the hiatus that, you know, it's not like you stopped writing, but this is a different thing going. It's kind of like the old team and...
Yeah. Well, I'd done, when the band had split in 2002, whatever it was, Pete went into politics. It took me a long time to find my feet, and in a way that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I ended up doing a solo record. Of course, that's the first thing you do because you've got all these songs lying around and no band to deliver them. Which was great and a good experience. And then I started producing other bands a bit, which was fun for a while. And then I ended up being session player on people's records like Casey and things like that. And I'd already written stuff with Neil Finn and people like that before. And his process was really interesting to watch. And as writing songs with Don, and I've done that before too, and it's really interesting to see. They're such good writers, but they approach it so differently. This isn't answering your question, by the way, but Don...
It's my cunning plan.
Yeah, that's right. Don just writes the words out, and the words are just the words, and he has a book and with A3 paper and A4 shape written with a pencil, and there's columns. So he'll write the words, and then he'll do a draft, and then he'll get his thesaurus out, and he'll have alternate words.
Wow.
And he'll keep refining the words until there's nothing left to change. It's just the bony truth of what he wants to say. There's nothing else that needs to be added or taken away. It's just the essential song. It's not one word out of place.
And that's before chords and melody. So,
yeah, he'll write the chords and melody in the last 10 minutes. Seriously. And then with Neil, it's like he'll be jamming away in a kind of an Irish way, which is a bit more like me, you know. And just some guitar thing, and just be going along, and that's really good. And then the melody will come, but it won't have any words to it. So he'll put the words on later. So there'll be this sort of musical thing that informs the words, whereas the other way around with Don. So
does Neil kind of get into the phonetics of his kind of rambling and kind of go, that's the sound of the word I want to keep?
As far as I can tell, yeah. Yeah, he's very in the moment and very present, whereas I think Don's a bit more theoretical and, thorough. And
do you find that writing with other people is just possibly the best way to learn about songwriting outside of what you normally do?
Yeah, it can be. I mean, sometimes there are things that I do that are right. I think they're right, and I don't need a lot of other additions. But then, that's the feeling I have. Because all you've got is your instinct. With all of this stuff, you don't have anything else. There's no real rule book. You can read Jimmy Webb's book about songwriting, but then, it'll be different to Neil Finn's book, and they'll all have different. There's no right or wrong. I mean, it's how you feel, and you just got to be yourself. It's the most important thing. That's not answering your question at all.
No, it's fine.
No. What was your question?
I've forgotten.
No, good.
Well, look, there's a couple of things I just want to talk about. In terms of Midnight Oil and the relationship between the two guitar players, now someone suggested to me the other day that is the essence of the band, outside of all the other parts of it, is the way those two guitars work together. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and the approach you take? Question without notice.
It's really hard to answer a question you don't want to answer.
You can pass. I've got others.
No, I think Martin's wonderful. He's just, I'll play something and he'll just start playing something else and it'll sound good. It's because we're so different that, we love the other for being other, really. I'm not going to him going, you should play this, and he's not going to this, that doesn't sound good. There's usually no conversation at all, because he's more of a blues player with a spikier kind of sound, and I'm more of a melodic player with a warmer sound. I guess that's what it is, if I even think about it for more than a second, which I don't want to. I just did. I just don't want the magic to go away.
Yeah.
Trying to explain things, but I think it's important because again, there's this thing, if it's not all on you, the pressure isn't all on you to be the lead guitarist, for God's sake, where's the wah-wah pedal, I mean, it's not that, it's more. And Martin also in other ways is important because he's a great, not so much a writer as anymore, but he's a fair judge of songs, and he won't say that sucks, but he'll go, that's good. That's a good bit. Oh, that's a good song. I like that. And then you'll know that other thing. We'll come back to that later. Because he's. I don't think we. I don't think we. It's bands are full of all sorts of characters: mothers, fathers, children, people who aren't accountable, people who want to dominate, people who the mother figure that people come to when things go wrong. Bands are full of all sorts of people like that. So he's certainly a judge and a fair judge, a fair player. Yeah.
So we were talking a bit before about Midnight Oil were sort of legendary for their kind of energy and or aggression playing live, certainly the early days, and that's kind of what set you apart. I was talking to Keith Welsh, who manages Icehouse, who was in the Flowers, and they had a particularly successful first record, and he just said, despite our success, nobody touched Midnight Oil live. It was, daylight second. So
it's lovely coming from him, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what's your kind of take on energy versus aggression as a performer?
Well, yeah, it's...
And the music you write.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because rock bands are all about energy and aggression as well in a certain way, but then I think there's sometimes energy that's aggression can just be flailing around. You think, I'm rocking really hard, but actually it's not connecting because it's just all this noise and it doesn't connect. The energy is sort of what... There's like a distillation of the aggression in a sense. And I think the early shows probably, as I remember them, were kind of dangerous, and there was a lot of heat and 1,500 people in a room that were all as big as this, and there was no lighting and the power went out, and there was, it was broken glass everywhere, and, par cans that were sort of made the stage about 65 degrees centigrade. And I think the general, what you're getting at is that I saw AC/DC playing in about 1975. We supported them, and as a kid, I was just standing there going, this is before they were even famous, really. They'd been on Countdown, I think, and they had Long Way to the Top they were playing. A little gig, there was about 20 people in the audience in a car park in Ryde. I don't know why I always come back to Ryde.
Cultural Centre of Sydney.
Top Ryde. And I saw it, and I just stood there just going, wow. I was only about 18. I just go, that was energy that was just harnessed and controlled. And there was not a note out of place, and Malcolm's rhythm was just, I was just looking at his right hand just going, holy shit.
How do you do that?
What is that? I've never seen that. And Phil's hi-hat, I was going, what's, like that? So the two of them together was like, that's it. That was the moment for me. It was just with a rock band. It's like that was such a learning curve, and they didn't give a shit that no one was there. They just couldn't have cared less. They were off to another gig. Didn't matter.
So do you think that
because they knew that what they were doing was right? There was something about their confidence of it.
Do you think anyone who performs now? And I mean, it's obviously quite different now. There's a different kind of context for performing live. That's still as important. Getting the energy across, connecting with the audience.
Well, especially if you're in your 60s, yeah. You might need some help. No, it's a big part of it, yeah. Especially if you're playing rock music. Yeah, it's just got to feel fresh every time you do it. If it sort of seems rote or kind of too rehearsed or something, it isn't kind of much fun for audiences as well, I don't think. I mean, unless I'm wrong about that, but the songs can tell the story a lot better sometimes, but if the energy isn't there, then the songs don't really work.
And you still get that rush from playing live?
Yeah, because I don't know what I'm doing. I mean,
excellent.
If someone in the studio asks me to play something on a song or a session, and the first take they'll say, "Oh, that was really good," and I said, "Did you record?" And they go, "No." And then I go, well, and they say, "Can you do it again?" And I said,
"No."
What did I do? And they go, "Well, you went no here and there, and there's a bit of chord there." And I go, "I don't know. Did I? Did I really do that?" And then, of course, I'll do something completely different the next time.
Well, producers in the room, that's a good bit of advice. Always record.
Always record the first take
gold
with
happens
Jim.
When people aren't thinking on
and
that
with
much.
Steve too.
That's right.
You're probably better on your third take, though. I would feel.
Yeah, and I think I get worse after a while.
Yeah, we all do.
It tends to happen. Look, I'm going to shift focus here into a little bit of kind of industry talk. I know it's probably not something you want to talk about, but I'm going to take you there.
No.
So the Oils took a particularly independent approach to what you did from the very beginning. So how did that shape the music, or was it the other way around?
Independent. Well, only because no one wanted to know about us, really. Agents didn't want to touch us. Record labels didn't want to touch us. One label came along and said, "Oh, that bald guy, wasn't he dressed up as Spider-Man? Why don't we get him to be the..." I mean, all these sort of bizarre things they come up with. And of course, if you fell for it, of course you go down a certain road. But our thing was more like, well, we don't want to do that. So we built up an audience without any really media or industry help until they started paying attention to it, really. Hey, there's a room full of 800 people all going mad. What's the band that does that, you know? And then we also did bills with other bands like Birdman and Radio Birdman and other, you know, Jimmy and the Boys or whatever it was at the time, and we'd do multiple band bills for benefit shows and create our own, put our own posters up. And then the industry started taking notice of it eventually, and they go, well, there's something's going on here. They're filling up the Paddo Town Hall, but no one knows who they are. So that created a bit of interest. That was very much Gary, our manager's theory, which was don't give the industry the meat. Just waft the smell of the barbecue towards them and they'll come running towards you. But in a way that's true, because it's like, that's a good thing, because if you, you know, demystify it all or make it do what they want you to do, then you've probably already lost the game. So the music then became basically prog rock in the beginning, which was sped up in the pubs to accommodate people's need for excitement and the drink and everything that was going on in the pubs. And then that became our music, really.
So, but
fast prog.
Underpinning that was probably, and I think this is quite pertinent, what looked like an unshakable faith in what you were doing.
Yeah.
From the very beginning.
You know, there's a certain amount of confidence, but also stupidity as well. You know, there's nothing wrong with being stupid, but just keep making the same mistake over and over again. Eventually everyone will come around to it. No, it's more of a kind of a, yeah, because we had each other, you know, including Gary, the manager, you know, we all got what it was, and then, even though it was sort of difficult at times for other people, probably we had each other.
So, I mean, what advice would you give the room about how much notice these guys take about the business side of their careers?
Oh, you got to, you know, it's critical, because don't sign anything that gives your music away. Keep your publishing, keep your recordings, lease the recordings to the company. Don't give it to them. Give it to them for 3 years or 5 years. Don't give them everything they ask for in the first meeting, because it's probably like you're so flattered that they're showing an interest in you that you'll, you know, go to bed with them in the first date kind of thing. In a sense, it's more, you know, there's that great story that Lieber and Stoller, the songwriters, tell about. They had that song Surrender that they'd written, and Elvis wanted to record Surrender. You were telling me about the Dolly Parton thing before, but same thing. And Colonel Tom said, yeah, well, Elvis wants to record Surrender. And, you know, they were like, oh, great, we've always wanted an Elvis to sing one of our songs. And they said, well, where do we sign? And then Colonel handed them a piece of paper. Just sign that. It was blank. And he said, just sign that. He said, we're not going to sign it. He said, don't worry, I'll fill the rest in later.
Nice.
That's very much what the industry's like. It's not... People will literally walk through a sea of shit to get to sort of the other side without knowing that they don't have to do that. You know, it's like... We were lucky in our band because we had a couple of bush lawyers in the band.
That helps.
And actually a real lawyer in Pete who would read the contract and basically rewrite the whole thing in our favour. You know, which was unusual in those times because they knew that they weren't going to when they looked at us, it wasn't going to work if they were going to just pull the wool over our eyes. It wasn't going to work. You have to be really clear about that and just own your own stuff.
All right, cool. So let's quickly talk about maybe the recording process. So you have your own studio now, like many people. Do you want to quickly tell us about it and the sort of things you do in there?
Well, my studio's like a junk pile in a sense. It's all my old gear that I couldn't throw away. And I've never thrown much away, so I've got all these old synths and things. It's started at home under my parents' house with a little TX4 track and a simple mixer, like, you know, what you had in those days, like the Pro Tools of 1975. And then it's gradually evolved, and now it's a fully professional studio. But, you know, it's not so much the studio doesn't really make much difference, I don't think. It's to a song, which we're talking about songs here, aren't we? I think the song can be done. Steve Reich said it doesn't matter what you record it on, it could be on a cassette or on a bloody wire recorder. It's the idea that the intellectual, you know, the actually encoded inspiration that is it's not the sound of it as much as it is, because you can have the best sounding stuff, it's a load of crap, the song or whatever, or you can have a nasty sound but it can be a great song. I'd rather have that, you know. And
performance in the studio?
Live playing, always better. If you've got a band, if you're doing that kind of music with a group, then overdubbing was something that I was taught a bit by Glyn Johns, who we work with, this legendary record producer from the 60s, who worked with the Stones and the Kinks and all the bands that I love, the Beatles even, the Small Faces, you know, it goes on and on and on. And he didn't like people overdubbing for two reasons. One, which was the tape wore out if the more you played it. And, you know, I remember trying to overdub something with him. He just got really pissed off with me. Why would I want to sit with some fucking guitar player for 2 hours in the control room when he could have blazed through it on the track, you know? And then it's all glued together. And the other thing about it, which is I've only realised over time, is that what he was really saying was that if you play something now, it will affect the people in the room now. If you put it on later, they won't be affected by you. You'll be affected by them. But it's like if you put your bit on later, you're better to do it, if you can, right on the spot. Yeah. Even if it's dodgy or whatever, at least it'll have the right feeling to it. And often that's the best way to capture magic, is if with people all together.
And do you enjoy producing?
I did, yeah. It's all right. I mean, I've stopped a while back. I'm not doing it anymore because I reached 60 and I was like, well, you know, it's a lot of work. I'd rather do my own things selfishly. Now, I've done a bit of that. It's always the thing with producing is like you don't usually get any of the credit, but you get all the blame if it goes wrong.
Of course.
Which is why they're there. Why you're there. Yeah. You're just the fall guy in a sense. I was probably better. I'm probably better as an artist than as a producer. I think the people skills are sort of a big part of it. Plus, that the best producers I work with are kind of bullies as well, which I'm not.
Is that good?
I'm a team player. I'm a team player.
Is that a good thing, being a bully as a producer, or it's something that you
it's probably
rather
necessary. Well, we've got the records we've just made with Warren Livesey, this fellow, this English bloke, and he's not really a bully. He's a bit of a bully, but he's so nice about it that you don't know that he's being one. You know, he's
cruel,
sort of
cruel but fair.
He just sort of points you down the road to doing a good performance, and he won't say, you know, I'm very much like, if someone doesn't like the guitar part, I just go, well, I'll give you another one. You know, it doesn't matter. It's just art, you know.
Yeah, not too precious.
Do you want red or green? You know, it doesn't matter. Black, you know, yellow. It's all the same in a sense. It's sort of like a. I think being a bully, Glenn was a bully, but he was a great record producer.
Yeah.
It's absolutely unbelievable. And the more I listen to it, he was happy with the sound of those people playing in that room. He didn't want it to be anything else. All he wanted to do was to capture that.
And when you look back on the records, you kind of go, well, it worked.
Yeah. I think overdubbing, you can just disappear up your own bum.
Yeah,
and it just gets so smooth and just so even. It's like it doesn't have any jagged edges or life. You want to feel that there was someone there doing it at the time. You don't want perfection.
Do you think there's a sort of acknowledgement that the various digital platforms we get to use now, that's the trap? Is that you have endless options?
Well, endless editing ability, yeah. I think so. I think it's a bit of a sin, but having said that, there are people who are great at it as well.
Absolutely.
But for me, it's better to do the other thing.
All right, so we're going to end our little session here with what I've called the tough one-word answers. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. First song you ever learnt to play?
Pocus Pocus by Focus.
How many guitars do you own?
About 30.
Really? Okay. Would it be more? Which guitar is your favourite?
Which guitar?
Is your favourite?
Oh, God.
You can pass.
Guitar. Probably a 12-string Rickenbacker made by a guy called Piers Crocker.
Oh, beautiful.
A Sydney maker. It's his own version of that.
Guitar pedal you can't do without?
Boss Vibrato, VB2.
Hardest oil song to play?
Hardest to play? I'd say Someone Else to Blame, which is a very obscure one, which we never play. Blue Sky Mine's really hard. I find that really hard to play.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Song you wish you'd written?
Save the Last Dance for me.
Oh, really? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Song you want to never hear again?
I Died in Your Arms Tonight.
Excellent choice. Pet hate while touring?
Pet hate while touring. Housemaids.
Okay, good.
Housekeeping, rather.
Favourite Australian band?
A favourite Australian band? I love Air Cooper.
Oh, okay.
Is he a band?
Oh, close enough. Laughing Clowns?
Yeah, it's favourite Australian band. It's a good question.
Yeah.
Don't know.
There's a lot.
There's
to choose from.
Yeah, I know them.
Okay, you can.
So I'm not biased.
No, I was trying to trap you there, but it didn't work. All right. If you had to choose one of these, Fender or Gibson?
Gibson.
Beatles or Stones?
Well, can I just say before you ask that, before I answer that, that you listen to a Stones record and the vocals mix right down, so it's rock.
Yeah.
Pop music has the vocals really loud, so it's more pop or rock, isn't it?
Pop or rock?
Pop or rock. Well, I'd say Beatles, which is pop.
Yep.
But then I'd say rock.
You're not going to answer this question,
pop.
are you?
No, I'd probably go pop, actually, and Beatles.
Okay, Beatles. Okay, yeah. Eilish or Swift?
Swift.
Swift. Okay, good. Pro Tools or Ableton?
Oh,
okay.
Pro Tools.
Okay, Mac or Windows?
Unix.
Okay.
Cubase.
And the last question, coffee or tea?
Cup of tea.
Cup of tea. Thank everyone. Could you please thank Jim Moginie?
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Richard, for the great welcome as well. So that was beautiful. Thank you.
And sorry, before Dean, I'd just like a quick shout out to everyone here at Wollongong TAFE. Give them a big round of applause for everything they've done today.
Kristen.
All right. Great.